Hi there, my name is Darlene. I'm going to be talking today about the meat of the workshop for the workshop Polymers. Mike has already gone over some intro observation activities for the polymer class. The polymer class has room in it in the beginning. Even if you have a 60-minute class, you can squeeze in the slush powder, the Monty, what is it called again?
3-cup Monte.
The 3-cup Monte. That works well with this as an intro observation for this class. And during that intro observation, again, you talk about the 3 jobs of a scientist is to observe, hypothesize, and to test. Then you'd link that back to the overall polymer class. So, saying that we've done the introduction, this is the equipment you need for the polymer class. And again, there's Mike. He doesn't come with the equipment. And he's lost his hat for this one. The equipment for the polymer class, you'll need a beaker. This is a glass beaker you need. We're using a 600 milliliter. You don't want to use plastic because you're using it with acetone, so you're going to ruin it. You need a container of acetone, a styrofoam cup, some slime cups. The slime cups are 1 per student. Silly putty, if you can, 1 per student. Measuring glasses, I keep calling them shot glasses. When you're doing it with children, it's a good idea to call them measuring glasses and not shot glasses. PVA in solution, and your manager will tell you, will give it to you prepared. Slime paint, this is just regular water paint diluted. You can use any color you want. I've used all green, that way it's, you don't have children arguing that they want green or blue, but that's your discretion. I recommend all 1 color. And last but not least, sodium borate. Slime cup lids, which I put over here. And yes, styrofoam popcorn pieces. You can, if you don't have these available to you, you can take styrofoam and crumple it up. But everything comes packed in these, so they're easy to get a hold of. Okay, that's our equipment. Now, let's just jump right into the workshop. Assuming we've done the inter-observations, assuming you've said your name, we're going to talk about polymers. The first thing you would ask the children is, what do we all have in common? You can do this a number of ways. You can do it in the auctioneer. What do you, tables, chairs, lights, everything have in common? But basically, you want to get across, what does everything in the room, everything around have in common? And the answer is, if they're in, this is grade 3 to 6, so they may have heard this in science, matter. And again, this is polymers. Okay. Okay, matter. What is matter made of? They may know. Matter is made up of molecules. Okay. What does all matter have in common? What do all these things in the room have in common? Would you have an idea if you were a child? Everything in the room. They're made of things. They're made of molecules. Well, anything that's matter has 2 characteristics. It takes up space, and it has weight. Okay, so we can write that on the board. Matter, space, and weight. So everything around us, drill in, you want them to know matter takes up space and has weight. Another thing you want them to know is it's made of molecules. Okay, well, what's a molecule? In grade 6, they've sometimes heard of H2O. If they bring up H2O, you can write H2O on the board. Matter is made of molecules. Okay, so what is water? If we have, you will have this prepared full of water. If you hold it up, okay, this is water. Is it matter? Let's see, does it have weight? Yeah, it has weight. Does it take up space? Yeah, it takes up space. So if it has weight, it takes up space, it's matter. Good. So, if it's matter, what is it made up of? I've already talked about this. It's made up of molecules. All right, so what's a molecule? Good question. For this, we're going to ask for 3 volunteers. You can pick the volunteers yourself, but you can ask the teacher to pick volunteers. But Mike has our 3 volunteers in his pocket. So you ask for your 3 volunteers. You call them up to the front of the class. There they are in the front of the class. You say, these are the 3 children, we're going to call them atoms, that are going to make up a molecule, a water molecule. First, tell them to walk around the class. They say that atoms are floating around in space. Now they're floating around in space. And we need something to hold them together. And a lot of the children have heard of bonds. If they haven't, you say, okay, we can use Bond. It would be cool if we had James Bond, but we don't. Okay, so you call the kids back up to the front of the class, and you tell them the things that hold atoms together, that make molecules, are called bonds. And you ask them to lock their arms. Now this is called, we have 3 atoms. These are making up a water molecule. Now, these three atoms are bonded. They have a very, very strong bond. They're holding their arms together, at which point you can put your hands on their head and try to pull the children apart, and you won't be able to. They'll be holding on. And you say that if these were real atoms, when real atoms bond in a really, really strong bond, what they do is they're sharing parts of themselves. So if these were real atoms bonding, say Spider-Man and Batman would be sharing one arm. So between the two of them, they'd only have one arm. That's what makes them really strong, and you can't pull them apart. Okay, you thank the children. You ask them to sit down. You say, okay, now, that's all fine and dandy. We're talking about molecules. Now, we just made one molecule. We made a water molecule. Water molecules are small. What we're talking today are polymers, right? Now, a polymer is this really special type of molecule because if we want to make a polymer molecule with our example with children, we'd have to take all the kids in this class, hook their arms together. All the kids in the next class, hook their arms together. All the kids in the class, I'm watching you, class down there, the whole school hook their arms together. All the kids in the whole city of Montreal, or wherever you are, and hook their arms together. And that's a really, really, really big molecule. That's another thing that you're going to be reinforcing throughout the class is that polymers
sort of like Hands
are
Across
really,
America.
really, yes. What was Hands Across America?
That was for something a whole bunch of Americans got together and locked their arms together from California all the way to Maine.
Cool. Cool.
They may learn that in history.
That's really
depending
cool.
on when they're going to see this video.
Cool. Okay, so there you go. If you get that visual image that it's a long, 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 long chain of molecules makes up one polymer molecule. And that's why it's special. Okay, now, tell the class that you're going to give them a piece of a polymer and that they're going to make some observations on it. Remember, we've already gone through the observation, hypothesis, and test experiment. So pass them out a piece of polymer. Pass them each child out one of these little popcorn pieces and have them make observations. Give them time to observe. Okay, ask them, okay, what did you observe? Mike?
Green.
It's green.
It's squishy.
Squishy.
It bends very easily. It doesn't break apart.
Mm-hmm. Some children will break it up into teeny tiny little pieces. So when you go to collect it,
It
it's
breaks
just
apart into teeny tiny
little
pieces.
slots. Okay.
And
Right. There's
makes a funny
air.
noise.
There's air. It makes a squeaky noise. It's a little bit flexible. If you rip it, it rips. Wonderful. Now, tell the children, you're going to collect their polymers. You walk around the class and you collect the polymers and you fill it up. If it's not filled with children's pieces, you fill it up to the top. Now remind them, polymers, are they little molecules or are they big molecules? Polymers are really big molecules. And what's happened in these polymers is that they've been attached, the long strings of polymer molecules in here have been attached together. When they're attached together, there's little bits of air that's trapped. And that's what you're seeing here, the little bits of air. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take your acetone and tell the students, I'm going to pour this acetone in, and what I'm going to be doing is all those cross-linkers, those bonds that are holding the molecules together, you're going to break them. So all the long strings of the molecules, the long, 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 long polymers, are going to be free now. They're not going to be held together by those bonds. Okay. Do this in around a circle and try to keep the edges wet. There you go. And you ask them what they observed. Well, they'll tell you what they saw. They'll also, the ones in front, will say they heard some bubbling. You say that was the air being released. You can even pick it up and it's gooey. And they'll go, ooh, slime. You say, well, it's not slime. It's similar to slime, though. And now they can imagine these long, long molecules rubbing against each other.
Should they do that if they have nail polish?
Well, instructors shouldn't. And if it does, just take the nail polish off, because this is acetone, which is nail polish remover. Now, you put this to the side, but sometime between now and the time when you do the slime, making the slime, you're going to have to rinse this out. All right, so that was the intro to our polymers. When we come back, we'll talk about the first experiment. Okay, now that the children know that polymers are long molecules, that matter is something that takes space and weight, they've already had a first example of a polymer, the styrofoam. Go over the styrofoam again, what happened, the cross-linkings, when you release those, the molecules were all free, nothing was holding them together. I like that analogy, sort of showing them how the molecules are all kind of loose in space, and when you cross-link them, and when you bond them together in loose bonds, you're holding them. And that way it makes them more firm. There was a difference between the styrofoam before you put the acetone in, the styrofoam, when those bonds were holding, as opposed to the styrofoam without the cross-links. So the more cross-links, to get into the next activity, you tell them, the more cross-linking you have, the less flexible the polymers are. If you imagine the styrofoam, these are a lot of cross-links. All the polymers are being held very rigidly together. When there are fewer cross-links, when you take them off with the acetone, the polymers aren't as hard. They're a lot more flexible. Now, you can tell them that you have, give it to me, Mike, the water bag. Oh, he said that. I don't trust him. This sandwich bag or M&M bag or whatever, I don't know what you put in a bag so small, you can use a bigger one also. This is made up of polymers. Now, these polymers are a lot more flexible than the styrofoam, but they are made of polymers, and they are being held together by cross-links. Now, ask the students if they can hypothesize what's going to happen when you take this pencil and screw it through the polymer bag. They'll say, I don't know, it's going to what? Yes?
It's going to leak all over the place.
It's going to leak all over the place. Well, that's one hypothesis. Then the other, Okay, you think it won't leak. You've seen this before, maybe sip sacks. All right, so try it. We've made our hypothesis. Let's do our experiment. So you twirl it through. You need a sharp pencil. Twirl it through slowly one side and then twirl it through slowly the other. Keep twirling. What do you observe? It doesn't leak. Now, how are you going to explain that? Well, I'm not going to explain it yet. Okay. Now, I need another pencil. We'll be right back with that. You do the same thing with the plastic bag, this polymer bag, with our styrofoam bag, with our styrofoam cup, sorry. Okay. Now, styrofoam we know is a polymer. We've already gone through this. What are the hypotheses? What's going to happen when I poke it through the styrofoam cup? They're probably going to say at this point it's not going to leak because they've already seen it not leak with a plastic cup. Now, in this case, it is going to leak, so you want to do it over something that's going to catch it. So do the exact same way. You put it slowly. And go through both sides. Doesn't leak a lot, but it does leak. And you ask them, what do they observe? Okay, it's leaking. Why is it leaking?
It really had to go badly.
It really had to go badly. That's a good reason. Well, you're not far off. The difference between this polymer and this is more flexible. There are fewer cross-links holding it together. In this one, there are more cross-links. So in the flexible plastic, the molecules are held together, but not as tightly. So when you push the pencil through, the polymers can kind of be pushed out of the way. Then they sort of pull back, and they make a seal around the pencil. Whereas when we have our styrofoam, they're held very strongly in place. When you push the pencil through, you're breaking the polymers in half. Once they're broken, they have no elasticity. So when they're broken, it allows leakage to come out. So that's our polymer puzzle. Now they're going to experiment. They've seen some polymers. You're going to hand them out an ideal polymer. Don't tell them what it is before you give it to them. Once they get it, they're going to know it's silly putty. Tell them what you want them to do is experiment with the polymers and try and make some observations as to what the properties of this particular polymer are. So you pass out the little eggs, the silly putty eggs, one per child. And you allow them to, do what kids do with polymers. You do that for a little while. Okay, if it's an older class, you can ask them to tell you their observations while they still have the polymers. If it's a younger class, you may want to ask them to, okay, put your polymers back in your eggs and put it down. If they're in grade 3, they're going to have a hard time doing, listening while they still have the silly putty. Now, while they're playing with it, you have your monster silly putty. If it's been in a car overnight and it's cold, it's going to take a while to warm it up, so you want to play with it while they're playing with theirs. They've got their silly putty down, or they put it back in their eggs, and you ask them, what observations did they make? What observations would kids make, Mike? Makes a nice bracelet.
The color of it is pretty.
The color is pretty. If you can, ideally get the regular, well, it's kind of nasty looking, get the regular pink color. If you have to go for the yellow ones, go for the yellow ones, but it's better if they all have one color. What other observations did you make?
It pulls apart.
Mm-hmm.
If you pull it apart fast, it breaks.
Those are the main observations you want to get. It's long and flexible. If you rip it, it'll pull apart. there are many other observations the kids will make, and if you can relate them back to polymers and matter, good for you. Okay, we're going to take a break now. When we get back, we'll do our main polymer activity. Okay, we're back. Now with the silly putty, keep in mind that the children tend to play with this for quite some time. And don't let the children do that. Try to avoid having them put it anywhere into any openings they have on their body. And the silly putty, again, reinforce. Silly putty is matter, takes up space and is weight. If it takes up space and weight and it's matter, what is it made of? It's made up of molecules. What are molecules made up of? Molecules are made up of atoms. Okay, what do we know about the silly putty? What kind of molecules are they? Are they teeny tiny little molecules? No, it's a polymer. It's a really, really, really long, long molecule. And try to somehow have them visualize that when they're pulling the silly putty gently, the long molecules are rubbing against each other. When they rip it, you're ripping them. Okay, and you can even kind of, all right. Okay, now, oops, all right. The next thing we're going to do, tell the children, what you're going to do is you're going to make slime in front of the class, but don't tell them you're going to make slime. Tell them that what you have in solution, this is called PVA, polyvinyl alcohol, and what this really is a white liquid, clear liquid. Have them make hypotheses. What does it look like? It looks like water. How do you know it's not water? Ask some kids in the front to come up and tell you. How does it look? How does it look differently from water? What they'll probably say is it looks thicker. There are bubbles in it. The bubbles are kind of in suspension. All right. Now, can't get rid of the bubbles. Now tell them what this really is. It's not water. It's actually polymers that are mixed in water. And those polymers right now, they're small molecules or big molecules. They're big, long molecules. They're just kind of floating in the water. They're floating freely in the water, and that's what makes water kind of thick. But there's nothing really holding the polymers together yet. They're just kind of floating. Now, the next thing you're going to add, oh, looking for someone to wipe my hands off. The next thing you're going to add, let's just go out, sodium borate. Now tell the students that what this is going to do is going to grab those loosely floating polymer molecules, it's going to bind them together. Now ask them if they can hypothesize how it's going to change if they have the polymers bound together. What is it going to do? Any hypothesis from student in the corner?
You're just going to have two liquids mixed together, and you're going to have more liquid.
Okay, that's a good hypothesis. Let's test it. Take our cross-linker. It's going to grab those polymer molecules that are floating freely. It's going to bind them together. Any observations?
It looks the same.
Looks the same. Pick it up.
Oh, cool.
Ooh, good. And at this point they'll go, maybe it's slime. That's why I don't put the color in right away. So what's happened, now we can see those long polymer molecules, they're bound together. There's some cross-linkers. It's kind of slimy. Now at this point, you can say, has anyone seen this stuff before? Yeah, it's slime. Now, what other hypotheses?
And a snake. You know, slimy?
No, not, no. This is a side. The snakes are really not slimy. Children say snakes are slimy. They're not slimy. They're soft and they're beautiful. And that's why
snakes aren't slimy?
Snakes aren't slimy, no. Okay. Now, have them make other hypotheses about how the slime will feel, how the slime will act. Since they already know about polymers, they may say that, okay, if you rip it quickly, it'll rip. If you pull it gently, it'll pull gently. All the different hypotheses that they would have gotten from learning about polymers. So, now they have their hypothesis. Ask if they want to test their hypothesis. Sure, they want to test their hypothesis because they want to make slime. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make slime with the students. Yeah, okay. So you hand out, you don't hand out Kleenex. You hand out each student a slime cup. Thank you, Mike. So each student gets his own slime cup. Now the students are going to work in pods to make their slime. So they get in pods. Each student with their one slime cup per student. First thing you're going to hand out is PVA. Thank you, Mike. Per pod, they get some PVA and hand them out one measuring glass. And again, don't call it a shot glass because probably a bad idea. They're going to go home talking about shot glasses. Hand them a shot glass and have them measure to almost the top, but not quite the top, of their shot glass of PVA. Again, while they're doing it, have them make hypotheses, not quite to the top. Have them make hypotheses, have them make observations, and have them imagine, oh, no, that's a really bad idea. Have them imagine those long polymer molecules just kind of floating around loosely in there. Okay, once they've done that, walk around, collect the PVA, and collect the measuring glass. I should keep it over there because we'll wash it. And pass out some paint. Have them put 1 or 2 drops of paint in.
What happens if I put too much paint in?
It's not a good thing. You have a hard time getting it to gel. And while Mike's doing that, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back in 2 short minutes. Alrighty, so we have Mike still stirring, still making observations. Do you want to put another drop of color in that? Maybe 1 more? Makes some color, stirs it up, makes observations. Now, as you're passing out the sodium borate, you may notice that there's some crystals on the bottom. That's no problem. This is a supersaturated solution. When you run down, when the liquid runs down, you can just put more water in it, and you'll have another solution. You don't necessarily have to shake it up. If you see stuff on the bottom, don't worry about it.
Are we using, is this food coloring?
No, that's paint, tempered water paint.
Why do we use that instead of food coloring?
Cheaper? Oh, no, I think that's what we've...
Oh.
You can dilute it. You can get a thing like this and just dilute it
It
forever.
won't stick on your hand like food coloring sticks on your hand.
That's true. Oh, good point.
Okay.
I never even thought to use food coloring. I just...
Okay.
Yeah. Next thing we're going to do is, again, as you're passing out the sodium borate, you're collecting the other things you've already passed out, because you don't want them mixing up a storm. Pass out the sodium borate with popsicle sticks to stir with, and remind them that what they're doing is this is going to grab those long polymers that are floating around, keep reinforcing that. It's going to grab those long molecules and cross-link them, bind them together. Remind them and reinforce to them that not to put a lot of this in. They should put a couple squirts, stir it, and then pass it to the next person in their group. And they can put a couple squirts, stir it, and if it's still too loose, when it comes back again to their turn, they can put a couple squirts more. Couple squirts, squirt. Okay, not too much. And then stir it up. There you go. And you know, the kids all do that. They really do. So that you probably want to put a couple more. Now, what may happen is if you get a student that you see that they're putting sodium borate and it's just not sliming up, what they may have done is they may have put too much sodium borate. So in which case, you're going to have to assess it by putting a little bit in the corner where it's loose, and if it doesn't gel it, if it doesn't cross-link, then you're going to have to put more PVA. So you really want to be careful by telling the children to put a little bit of this at a time, not too much. So now they've got their slime, they're mixing. Give them a chance to just kind of get the feel of the slime, get it out of their system. They want to play with it. Most teachers won't want them to play with it on their desks. They'll just want them to keep it within the cup. So they'll be gooing with it. They'll be making their own observations, testing. Once you think they've sufficiently experimented with the slime, and it never seems like enough time for them, pass out cup lids and have them put a lid on it. No pun intended. Have them put a lid on it and tell them the slime will keep much longer if they keep it closed up. Now, once you have them all their attention again, they've lidded their slime, you've picked up everything that's coming back to you, you can ask them what their observations were. What did they learn about the polymers? What did they learn about the polymers? It was, again, slimy. Why?
Cold. It feels
cold.
very cold. Sticky sometimes.
Sticky sometimes. It's long and stringy.
It smells funny.
Does it smell funny?
Oh, it's kind of funny.
Oh, yeah, it does smell funny.
How does it taste?
No, I wouldn't taste it.
Why not? Is it bad for me?
I wouldn't advise it.
I'd probably get a sore tummy if I did or something.
Yes.
Okay.
You want to reinforce the children never to taste anything. Like, they can look at it, they can listen to it, sometimes they can touch it, and sometimes smell it very carefully. But when they're observing things and experimenting on things, they should very rarely taste it unless there's someone there who tells them they can. So go through the class, get their observations as long. Again, if you pull it gently, it'll stretch. If you rip it, what you're doing is you're ripping those cross links. There you have it. Now, there's an experiment that's included in the post-visit activities. You may have teachers ask you about this. It has to do with the slime. And again, depending on your location, your manager may send out before the program an overview of the class which tells the teacher what you're going to do, gives you some vocabulary, and within that overview, there's post-visit activities, things to try once you leave. Okay, we're back after some technical difficulties. Again, one of the post-visit activities that a teacher may ask you about is dissolving the slime. Now, what you want to do is you don't want to take a lot of the slime because it's not going to be reusable slime. So if the teacher asks you, take a little bit of slime, each student can do this, put it in a container, a cup, anything, and take some vinegar or an acid. And what the students will do is they'll pour the vinegar over the slime and then mix it with a popsicle stick. And what they'll see is that the vinegar or any acid is going to take those cross links that are holding the long polymers together, and it's going to dissolve the weak bonds. And so you're going to have a liquid again. Now, and they're going to notice this, and the teacher can go over this, a little bit of chemistry. To reform the bonds, what you're going to want to do is take a base. What I've suggested in the post-visit activities is baking soda and water, and they mix it up. Then the students will pour that back in with the slime, in with the vinegar, liquid. Then you're going to get like a gel-type material, white and fluffy. And you're going to see that you are getting cross-links again. It looks very snot-like. Okay, now that's something that a teacher may ask you. And again, if you're not in a location where the manager is sending out the pre- and post-visit activities, obviously they're not going to ask you about that. So that's the slime class. Again, in the end of every workshop, you have teacher or background material for the instructor. Crash course in polymers. This is by no way complete. This is what you need to know to teach the course. I recommend that you go and you get entry-level chemistry books and you read about polymers and polymerization, and it'll make you a little more familiar with the material. You end the course by doing the quiz. You go over the main concepts. What's a polymer? How is a polymer different from a water molecule? How do we know polymers matter? It takes up space and has weight. What makes a molecule? What are molecules made of? Who remembers how many atoms are in a water molecule? How are the atoms bound together in water molecules? Stuff like that. And if you have the stamp, you can stamp the children who get it right. If you're running out of time, you don't necessarily have to. Then you pack all this away while you pass out the Mad Tech equipment. You don't have time, you'd be packing this away while you're doing other things. And that's our polymer class. Hi again, this is Darlene Meller from Mad Science in Montreal. We're going over the meat of the workshop. The workshop we're going to go over is taste. Again, just a brief overview of the difference between a workshop and a course. Workshops are intended to be more educational. You should go in there with a firm knowledge of what the children are going to come home with after the class. You're going to find key objectives, key concepts, and reinforce those throughout the class. We're going back, asking the children questions, and again in the quiz. For an idea of where the key concepts are, in your manual, the beginning of the manual always has educational objectives. Those objectives are what you're going to reinforce throughout the class. Depending on whether or not your manager is sending out pre- and post-visit activities, the teacher may have already gotten a letter from the manager saying that your class will be on taste, an overview of what you'll be covering, some vocabulary, and some pre- and post-visit activities. So it's a good idea to be familiar with those. Another difference for a workshop and a course, one of the systems, for example, is that in the workshops you want to keep control over the children. In the course, the children are running around, they're having fun, it's wonderful, it's science, it's exciting. And of course you want to keep the children on task and focused. They should have fun, but they should never get too much out of control because you're going to have to leave these children with the teacher afterwards. And again, constantly reinforce what you want them to learn. Now this is the material for taste. One of the first things you're going to deal with is this big felt tongue. At least I hope that's what it looks like. The felt tongue is pretty easy to put together. You can go to any material store and buy felt. It's 2 layers, this tongue shape. And on the back, there's a second layer. And in here, there's a cardboard. And I've just taken the cardboard and stapled the string to it. You can either staple the cardboard and the 2 layers of felt together, or you can glue them. I'd recommend stapling the cardboard to 1 layer of felt and then gluing the other. So on the front, all you see is, you don't see any staples, but on the back, you may see staples. And the reason we put the cardboard in here is otherwise it sometimes kind of goes like this. So you want to have something firm going across, keeping it nice and straight out. You don't want to get anything too much bigger than this because it's going to be difficult to manipulate. And again, we're using the felt tongue rather than the tongue map as you do in the system because this is K to 2. And K to 2s may have a hard time mapping. So this is nice and visual for them. We have the 4 felt tastes. We have our chocolate chip cookie. We have this is our lemon. They run out of yellow felt at the fabric store. So I improvised with orange, but if you can find yellow. And these colors here you can buy in squares for like 50 cents each. It's really inexpensive to make. This is my coffee cup, and if you can do a better job, please go right ahead. And last but not least, you'll probably never guess what this is. This is my chip. And I'd done this with the first intro class. I did this with K's, and they promised me they wouldn't laugh. And every taste they put out, they said, well, that's a chip, and it stands for salt. So I was impressed. Another thing you're going to need is this is sodium benzoate paper, test paper. You can get this in Boreal. The number is included in the equipment list. You're going to need a whole bunch of these Dixie cups. For the tongue test, you're going to need 4 Dixie cups per pair of students. So when you're counting, 4 per pair of students and 2 Q-tips per taste. So that's 8 Q-tips per pair of students. You're going to need your tastes. I haven't labeled them because I don't want to give the kids away. Don't want them to give clues of what the tastes are. This is just coffee that will rehydrate when we use it. There's salt, lemon, and sugar. Now when you're mixing these, you want to get them as strong as you can. So heat up the water, put the sugar in, shake it until no more sugar will dissolve. Then you have a supersaturated solution. So as it cools, you may get some sugar crystals in the bottom. That's no problem. The same for the salt and the lemon flavors. When you're finding lemon flavors, try not to get sweetened lemon because you don't want the children to be confused between the sweet and the lemon. Make sure you get lemon. We need, for the fizz or not to fizz, some Pepsi syrup or Coke syrup and 2 cups per child. We've already done the Q-tips. We need paper plates. They don't have to be this big. They can be a little smaller. They can be plastic plates as well. These are Jell-O powders that we're going to use in the gummy bears or the gumdrops. And I've just put them in here so the kids don't know what it is right away. And we need pipettes. You can get smaller pipettes if you wish. These are longer ones. And we can try and use we can try and reuse the pipettes. We also need lifesavers, 1 lifesaver per student. And last but not least, we need our SodaStream machine. Now it's a good idea. The SodaStream machine comes with 3 of the bottles. Depending on how many students you're going to be using, it's what size bottle you're going to use. Keep all of them in the kit. It's easier. That way if there's a number of students that changes, you'll be ready for it. The SodaStream machine, you should always have an extra canister available because when you run out during one class, if you can't continue, it's going to be a hassle. So if you can keep 2 of these in the kit, 1 in the machine, 1 in the kit, and to change it, you just unscrew it and you screw in the new one. So it's really easy. Better safe than sorry. Okay, so that's our equipment. This just snaps up. And we'll be back in a minute and we'll go over the overview of the class and the first experiment. Okay, so the beginning of the class, if you have a longer class, you'll do one of the inter-observations that Mike had given us before, one of the 5. If you have a shorter class, you want to condense it, just go over the students with what is science, ask them what science is, ask them what a scientist does, overview the 3 things a scientist does. He observes, he hypothesizes, and he does experiments. And tell the students that today we're going to be scientists. The thing we're going to be learning about is taste. Wonderful. Okay, with that intro, ask the students, what is taste? I'll tell you, taste is something a taste they sense they get from their tongue. Okay, so what are some of the things we can taste? What are your favorite foods? The kids love telling you what their favorite foods are. Overview some of the yummy things to taste, some of the not so yummy things to taste. All right, now ask the children, with what do you taste? Do you taste with your elbow? Do you taste with your ear? Oh, of course you taste with your tongue. Have all the kids stick their tongues out. And then look at the, oh, that's a very nice tongue you have. And then, ooh, kind of like the guy from Kiss. Then have them look at the kid next to their tongue. And look, and then what they'll be looking for is the little bumps. At this point, you can take out your nice demo tongue. If you want, you can put it around your neck, which I won't do, because you'll hear lots of nasty noises. Or you can hang it up somewhere. Putting it around your neck is really fun, though. Okay, so this is our tongue. And all the little bumps on our tongues, anyone know what that's called? Those are called taste buds. You can write that on the board. They're in caves. They're probably not able to read it. Nice and big. Buds. And the taste buds are what we taste with. Now, really, our taste buds are only picking up 4 different tastes. Does anyone know what those tastes are? In a lot of classes, we'll have done this in preschool. If not, go over it with them. Does anyone know what the 4 tastes are? Okay, they may say sugar. All right. Now, I have some tastes that I made for you. Now, does anyone know what this could be? What's a cookie? What does it represent? It's representing sweet. So one of the tastes that we can taste is sweet. And if they have a blackboard, you can sometimes kind of lean it up against that. I won't do it because it was a mess there. So one of the tastes we can taste with our taste buds is sweet. Another taste, anyone know what this is? It's lemon. Lemons taste sour. What are some other sour tastes we can taste? And they name some. They love naming the sweet tastes. Okay, another taste. So we have 1 cookie, sweet. We have 2, sour. Another taste, this is my chip. How do chips taste? They taste salty. Can you think of some other salty tastes? And the last taste, which is a little tough for kids, this is my coffee cup. Does anyone know what coffee tastes like? Coffee tastes bitter. Bitter's a kind of tough taste. You don't often taste it. We're going to do an experiment later that you can taste bitter. So they've got the 4 tastes. If it's the first time they're hearing them, go over it again. That's one of the things you want them to go home with. You want them to go home with taste buds, or what tastes. We use taste buds on our tongues. Those bumps are taste buds. We want them to go home with it. There are 4 tastes that we taste: sweet, sour, bitter, and salty. And a couple other things we'll get to later.
Not to be confused with beer buds.
What's a beer bud?
No, I'll have a bud. A Bud Light.
Oakley dokley.
Friday afternoon, guys. Please understand.
Okay, now you can tell the story that you have a friend who's a scientist, and one day you saw her eating her popsicle. And how was she eating her popsicle, Mike? Since Mike's got such a nice tongue, I'll let him do it. She was eating the popsicle with only the front part of her tongue. And when I asked her why, she told me that actually our tongue has 4 areas on it that taste different things. That the front part is where she thought she could taste sweet the best. So being the scientist that I am, I didn't trust her. I wanted to go home and make my own observations with my own experiments. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to experiment with our tongues. The way we're going to do this, I'm going to make a joke about the experimenting with our tongues. The way we're going to do this is we're going to get into pairs. The students pair up and tell them that I'm going to be passing out to you 1 cup. And the cup has a flavor in it, one of the 4 tastes. And first thing you want them to do, try and identify what that taste is. Now, when they're tasting, they're working in pairs. One partner is going to have a Q-tip, and remind them to use different Q-tips. They're getting 2 Q-tips per cup, to use 1 Q-tip per student. What they're going to do is one partner is going to dip their Q-tip in the taste, and they're going to touch the Q-tip on this part of the tongue, and they're going to keep that tongue sticking out. Then they're going to touch the Q-tip on this part of the tongue, and they're going to keep that tongue sticking out. Keep your tongue sticking out. Then they're going to, on this part and on this part. And the person who's having their tongue sticking out has to keep it sticking out, has to keep their eyes closed, has to concentrate. It's really important. If you can't get them to close their eyes and to concentrate, where are they going to taste it the most? Where is the taste the strongest? That's the observation you want them to get to make. So you pass out to each pair, and again, you would have wanted to prepare this a little bit before. You don't want to put, I haven't put labels on them because I don't want the kids to know what it is, not the Coke syrup, Mike. Pass out to each pair 1 cup, and don't put a lot in. Just put, not a lot, just a couple squirts in. They just need 4 dips of the Q-tip each. So you pass out, so that all the students, all the pairs are starting with the same solution at the same time. And the Q-tips, 2 Q-tips. So they do the test. And they're concentrating. They all do it on one, Okay, and they can switch, and the other partner does it. Okay, what were your observations? What did it taste like? What taste was that, Mike?
Sweet.
That was sweet. Okay, did everyone taste sweet? Everyone tasted sweet. Now, where did you taste it the most? Did you taste it the most back here? Some kids may say yes, and most will say no. Did you taste it the most here? No. Did you taste it the most here? No. Did you taste it? Yes. Okay, so what am I going to put? Am I going to put my coffee cup? No. What's coffee? Coffee's bitter, right? Am I going to put my lemon? No, lemon's sour. What am I going to put? I'm going to put my cookie. What does my cookie represent? Sweet. Put my cookie here. Now, felt usually sticks to felt. If you anticipate a very windy outside program or problems, you may want to put a little bit of Velcro on both sides. You could Velcro it, but there's really no need. So now we're going to do another taste. So, and again, you will have all this lined up a little bit, not a lot, just enough. And you collect the Q-tips. You have the students put their Q-tips. They use Q-tips in the cups. You collect the Q-tips because you don't want to mix them. You don't want them using Q-tips they've used on sweet, on sour. So you have all the Q-tips. As you're collecting this, you pass out the next taste. And they go through it. Same thing. They do one child, then the partner. What did you taste? That's a really good face. Okay, so tasted sour. Where did you taste it best? In the back, on the front? On the sides. Okay, so you put the sour on the sides. You do the same thing for the other two. You collect as you pass out. Always make sure that each pair has only one cup in front of them with 2 Q-tips. And remind them again that they don't want to share Q-tips. You don't want to be accused of spreading some horrible disease. So go through the 4 tastes. They'll find bitters in the back. Okay, so what did we learn? What were observations? What did we learn from this experiment? That our tongue, even though, could you taste the sweet back here? Yeah, sure you could taste the sweet back there. All your tongue, all the taste buds, they taste the flavors all over, but they have a part of their tongue that tastes it the most. It's more strong. So when the tastes are, the sweet is best in the front, salty and sour on the sides, and bitters in the back. That's what we learned from this experiment. You want to reinforce it a little bit. Okay, so the 4 tastes, great. Oh no, hey, oh Mike. Okay. We'll be back in just a minute with the, that was really rude, with the next experiment. Okay, something I just remembered, as when you're doing the 4 tastes, try to give them the coffee taste last. And with the coffee, you just take a couple grains and add some water. You really don't want to give them a lot of this because this is a very strong taste. You want to give them a little bit, and it kind of colors their tongue. So do this last because it may affect the other tastes. Now, after they've done this, okay, so what did we learn? We learned that we taste with our taste buds. We taste the 4 bring up chemicals yet. We taste the 4 tastes. Now, our taste buds work by tasting chemicals, okay? Now, the thing I want to try with all of the class together as a group is what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a taste. It's going to be a lifesaver. And I want you to tell me what taste it is. That's not bad. You can use your taste buds. You can differentiate. You can tell what it tastes like, what flavor. The only thing I want you to do is I want you to have your nose closed and your eyes closed. Squeeze my nose together. So as a class, get all the kids to keep their eyes closed and their nose closed and tell them that what you want them to do is you're going to give them a lifesaver and they're going to concentrate, they're going to concentrate, they're going to concentrate. With their nose closed, concentrate silently. And then when you say so, they can release their nose. See if they notice a difference in taste. So ask the teachers to help you if there are any assistants as well. With all the kids with their tongues sticking out, walk around and plop. You can plop it in their mouths or plop it in their hands and allow them to taste. Once you've got the last one given out, tell them to remember. They have to remember what their observations are. Then allow them to open their nose. Okay, let go of your nose. Okay, now everybody can open their eyes and let's get our observations. What did you observe?
It just tasted sweet at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't tell what it was, but when I let go of my nose, I can tell that it's lemon.
Did you get your tongue? Yay. That's the general observation you want to get from the children, that they may have tasted sweet because it's mostly sugar, these things, in the beginning. But without their sense of smell, they have a hard time telling the flavor. The reason for this is that when a lot of the foods you're tasting, whenever you swallow, you're shoving a whole bunch of that sort of chemical-rich air up in the back of your nose. So while you're tasting, you're smelling. So reinforce to the children that smelling and tasting are mixed up together. They're combined. And then if they ever have to taste something, their mother makes them eat something they don't like, they can always block their nose.
My mom does that when I take medicine.
Make you block your nose. Because if you block your nose, you don't taste as well. Now, the next experiment, which is related to the taste, is sodium benzoate papers. Now, if the tongue test has taken you a long time and you only have a 60-minute class, you don't feel you're going to have time for this, skip it. Also, if you have like young Ks that are taking a long time, probably best not to do this. This is better for the older, the 2s, or really high-functioning 1s. But if you have time on Ks, it's fun to try. Tell the children that what you're going to do is you're going to give them a piece of paper. And what you want them to do is to silently, again, just like with the lifesaver, their eyes closed, they can open their nose this time, you want them to taste the paper. And you touch the paper on all the 4 taste areas. Now, the neat thing about this paper is depending on your mother and father, whether they can taste it or not, you may or may not be able to taste it. So the first thing I want you to concentrate on, we're all going to do it together though, we're passing out the papers, we're all going to taste this together. First thing I want you to concentrate on is whether you can taste it and what exactly you taste. So as a group, okay, everyone taste it. So they're tasting. Okay, now, we're assuming that if we're doing this, they're pretty high functioning. So you can chart it on the board. How many people could taste it? You can ask them to put up their hands. How many people could taste it? Okay, there's 1. Could taste it. 1. How many people couldn't taste it? Oh, there's 2 that couldn't taste it. All right, so out of the people who could taste it, what did you taste? How many people tasted sweet? Okay, 1 person tasted sweet. How many people tasted sour? 1 person tasted sour. How many people tasted bitter? The same person tasted bitter. Okay. How many people tasted?
That's really good math. 1 person tasted it, and 3 people had different tastes.
You get the picture.
Why don't you put a 4? Like make a little.
Well, because I was counting in the room.
Put an L into the thing for the video purposes.
4.
There we go.
Bitter and salty. 0.
Oh no.
No, but 4 people tasted it. So that should be. We'll put. Okay, wait. We can do this. We can do the math. 2.
All right.
UE. Okay, all those years in school. Okay, so if they're older, you can chart it. If they're Ks, it's probably just, it's okay, that's really cool. So what do we learn from that? Does everybody taste the same?
Do I get to eat this now?
If you want to.
Do I swallow it?
I wouldn't. Actually, the sodium benzoate, it's a preservative that's used in a lot of foods. So you're just eating paper. So there should be no children with allergic reactions to this because it's in most foods. So what we've learned is taste is a personal thing. Just because I taste something, I think it tastes good, doesn't mean that everybody will think it tastes good. So taste is a personal thing. Why? Because everyone's tongue is different. If you stick out your tongue, you look at the tongue next to you, they don't look the exact same. Tongues are personal things. You don't want to get into that. Now at this point, we're talking about taste and our taste buds. Our taste buds, where are they? They're on our tongue, those little bumps. Our taste buds taste chemicals. They pick up chemicals. And they identify those chemicals as the 4 tastes that we went over. Now, if we're going to change the chemicals of a food, we're going to change the taste, because our taste buds are tasting chemicals. Another thing you're going to reinforce. Taste buds taste chemicals. Now, the next experiment we're going to do, we're going to make soda. And the kids love that. Does everyone like soda? Everyone loves soda. What sodas do you like the best? I like Coke, I like Pepsi. Okay, the neat thing about soda, and again, depending on
nectar juice.
Depending on how many kids, it's going to, whatever size you want to use. Let's use the little one for this. Now, this is just water. Now, all soda really is water and sugar. And this is Pepsi flavored sugar. If I want to make soda, just put this in. Ugh, this is really gross looking. And this is our soda. Does this look like soda to you?
No way.
No way. What's missing?
The fizz.
The fizz. Okay. What we're going to do is I'm going to fizz some soda. And by fizzing it, it actually changes the chemicals. By putting the gas in it, we're changing the chemicals. And I want you to tell me if it changes the taste. So you're going to ask the teacher if she could pour this into cups while you're doing the next experiment. Because what you're going to want to do is for each child, you're going to give them a cup of fizzed and not fizzed. Don't want to give them too much. Probably only want to give them a little bit so they can get one mouthful. Don't want them on sugar highs when you leave. Now, while Mr. K is doing that, the next thing, I'm going to make some soda, but I'm going to make it the way people really make it, with fizz. The way we're going to fizz it is we're going to use our soda stream. Now what this is going to do, in the back, we have a container with gas under pressure. I'm going to squirt that into the water. Again, this is just water from the tap.
Why don't you put the syrup in first?
Well, that's a really bad idea. Thank you, Mike. because it'll be all over the place. If you have sugar in here, it's going to just fizz, kind of like shaking a can and opening it. So you put the syrup in last. So before we put the syrup in, we're going to fizz it. You push up and you. Now when you're doing this, there are two levels. There's a water level. Don't go over the water level. It's really easy to use. There's a water level and there's a syrup level. So fill the water to the water level. Now when I do it, I always tell the kids that this is a new machine and I've never really used it before, because the first time I did it really was I'd never used it before. So tell them that I think the way it works is I put this in, okay, and I'm closing it now. To put the gas in, I'm going to push this button. It's going to put fizz in. Ready? And the kids in the front, they're kind of look a little nervous. So I stand back and look. Do you want more fizz?
Yeah!
A little bit more? Okay, if it's a bigger one, you could do it again. I can tell that it's making like a sound at the end that it's full. So, now the next thing is really cool, because this sound is, I've told, one of the coolest sounds in Mad Science.
CBS, Scotty.
I thought it was like a Darth Vader noise. Okay, so you get all the children. Be quiet. You can open this up now. Ready? Okay, here we go. It's really cool. Cool. Do it again. Okay, so all I've done now is I've taken the water, regular water, and I've added gas to it. I've added some bubbles. Now, to make cola, what do we need to do? We need to add the flavor. We add it to the second line. I didn't put enough, but it's pretty bubbly. Add it to the second line. Shake it. Be a little bubbly. I probably could have put another fizz in it. And you do the same thing. That's a big cup you got there, Mike. You pour a little bit in, and you pass out to each pair of, well, each student should get 2 glasses. So that when they get the 2 glasses, they're to taste. See if they taste the difference between the one that had fizz or gas and the one that didn't.
This one tastes better.
Tastes better. So there's a difference in taste?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you think if by putting the gas in, do we change the chemicals?
Yes.
Why?
Because you added CO2.
Okay, so by adding CO2, we change the chemicals. When we change the chemical on something, we're changing the taste. Because what are our tongues doing? They're using our taste buds to detect chemicals. Okay, so when we change the chemicals, we change the taste. Now I want you to try something else. We're going to change the way something looks, and I want you to taste it before and taste it after. And depending on how it tastes, I want you to hypothesize whether or not we've changed the chemicals. So walk around, pick up all the cups. Now, hopefully, you haven't given the students too much. If you give them too much, and they don't generally like the unfizzed stuff, then they're not going to drink it. They're going to take a sip, and you're going to have a cup full of stuff. So you're going to end up like walking around with all these cups full of Coke. So only give them enough so they can taste it. That way, just pick up the cups, throw them in the garbage. The next one, they're working in pods. You give each pod a cup of water. A cup of water. We'll use cola, unfizzed cola. Not a big cup of water. It's going to make really funky gummy bears. And a pipette. Okay. Now, what they'll need to do.
Should we use regular water? This may change the taste.
Really, well, not.
Let's
Yeah,
take
it's
a
true.
break and we'll come
Okay, we'll take a break and we'll come back. Okay, here we are, continuing with our experiment of changing chemicals. Remember that when we change the chemicals of the Pepsi, change the chemicals, change the taste, because the taste buds are picking up on the chemicals. Now, the next experiment we're going to do is making gumdrops. What you're going to do to begin with is pass out to each pod of students, they're working in pods now, a cup filled with water and a pipette. Now, if they're in Ks, and even if they're in 1 and 2s, you want to show them how to use the pipette, that you squeeze the end and you suck up the water. You want them to practice dropping single drops into the water, because that's what they're going to do if they don't practice. So ask them, tell them we're the scientists, we're practicing being scientists. To be a scientist, the next experiment, we need to make drops. So have all the kids practice with drops. Allow each student to practice that. Tell them that this is called a pipette. The pipette's a tool that scientists use.
I have a pipette.
Thank you. Okay, so Once they've got the drop process down packed, you're going to pass them out, or you're going to come around with, this is Jell-O. And on each pie plate, you're going to make a pile of Jell-O. Now, again, like the other classes, if you have pods that are small enough that while they're practicing doing the drops, you can see a pod that's got the dropping down packed, you go over to them and then you'll show them on a per pod basis. If you've got a really big class, you don't have time to go around and deal with each pod separately, say, okay, boys and girls, put down your pipettes for now. I'll show you what we're going to do. And demonstrate to them that they're going to take a drop. First, they're going to taste it. Taste a little bit of it. Remember how it tastes. It's good. Then they're going to take a drop. This is why they practiced. Put one drop in the middle. And each student, we're going to make them do 1 or 2 drops. So it's good to have it higher. Then once they've made their 2 drops, they can sort of flick their little gumdrops over to the side and taste them. And then give the pipette to the next student. And what they want to do is they want to remember and observe the taste. Well, there's a difference in taste before when it's a powder or after when it's a gumdrop. And the students they love doing this. If they're not practiced with the drops, what they'll end up doing is just making a plate full of goo. They just squirt water on it. So you want to be specific about getting them to do drops. And once they've gelled, they flick them over to the side, they taste them. Now, once they've all had a chance to make their gumdrops, once they've all had a chance to taste their gumdrops, okay, everybody put your pipettes down. What are your observations? Did you notice a taste? Do you notice a taste difference?
Tastes good.
No, there's no difference in taste. So when it's a powder and when it's a gel, when it's a little gumdrop, it tastes the same. So if we change the chemicals, no, if we haven't changed the chemicals, then it should taste the same. Because what do our taste buds taste? They taste chemicals. What are the 4 different tastes we can taste? The sweet, sour, salt, Billy. When you get into the quiz, it's definitely sweet. Yeah. Then you get into the quiz. You do the whole wrap up of the 4 tastes. Why is it important? Chemicals, whole thing. Again, in the end of your workshop manual, you have a crash course in taste. This by no means is extensive. This is an overview of what you need to know. If you'd like more information, it's a good idea to go look it up. Be prepared. And I believe that's it for our taste class.
There's nothing. That taste class made me so hungry, and there's nothing like a taste of Montreal bagels. You senior instructors out there, got to come visit us in Montreal for a seminar, whatever we're holding, get a chance to taste these bagels. Just as a final note, for the soda streams, depending if your manager can't do it or if you're not doing it, these containers should last you a really, really long time. But in case they don't, how do you refill them? One of the methods is send them back to Montreal, but then you have to worry about shipping charges. If you bring this back to a regular CO2 filling place, they're not going to be able to fill it up. See your manager if he asks you to fill up the container for the adapter. This CO2 adapter is used by all sorts of different companies, and you screw in the bottom of the CO2 tank, and it's the adapter piece that will go into a bigger machine unit, and you hit the lever, and it's going to fill up this tank with CO2. Very simple. So if you're running out, don't worry about it. Very cheap, ineffective. It should cost about $3 to fill this thing up. See you guys soon with the next workshop. Take care.
Everybody, my name is Darlene Meller. I'm the program developer here in Mad Science Montreal. And what we're going to be going over today is the workshop Dinosaurs. Now, first of all, workshops differ from courses in that workshops are designed to be educational. So when you go into a workshop, you should know what the children are going to come out knowing. And those key concepts you should reinforce by asking questions throughout the workshop. Another difference in workshops and courses is that workshops, we want to keep more control over the children. You don't want them to go haywire during the class because you're going to have to leave the class and the teacher's going to be stuck with those haywire kids. So when we're doing workshops, kids can talk quietly when they're in pods, but you always want to maintain control over the class. And again, you always want to reinforce the key concepts over and over and over. Now, today's workshop is dinosaurs. First, I'll go over the equipment for dinosaurs. Okay, the first thing we need is an inflatable stegosaurus. Now, you're going to blow him up during class. So if you don't have good lungs like I don't have good lungs, I sort of give him a pre-blow up before the class. So he's blown up a little bit, and you want a bone model Stegosaurus. These are the only ones I could find. If you can find a bigger one for just the demo that's the same size as the Stegosaurus, that would be ideal. But this works well as well. So we have our articulated, he's glued together. When you buy them, they're in different pieces. It's a model kit. You glue them together, and it's okay if he has one leg that's kind of falling off, because you can use that leg in the class to talk about. We have, and this is just one. This is a demo. You're also going to have, per pod, casts of, this is a Camptosaurus maxilla. So you want one of these per pod. These are boreal. And a Tyrannosaurus tooth. And this is, again, one per pod. We're going to need Play-Doh, one per child of Play-Doh. Whoops. Oh, my goodness. Oh, leave that one. One per child Play-Doh. If you're having big classes and you have a lot of Play-Doh, you can make it. Now, this is Play-Doh that I've made, and white is the best color you can get, because when you're pulling the plaster of Paris into the Play-Doh, it's good if you can have white. And the recipe for the Play-Doh is in your manual. You need plaster of Paris. It's good to have a couple of these in the kit, because you're going to use 3 tablespoons per child, so it's always good to have extra. You want a turkey baster and a cup in which to put water, a tablespoon measure. Paper towels. You need popsicle sticks, and 1 paper towel and 1 popsicle stick per child. You also need cups. Now, I'm using these Dixie cups. If you can get paper cups, that would be ideal, because they're a little more biodegradable. If not, you can use Dixie cups. You can use styrofoam cups. It needs to be big enough for the children to mix the plaster of Paris. Okay, here we are at our fossil dig. For the fossil dig, you'll need a high-top Rubbermaid container, or any container roughly this size that has a top or a lid that you can use as a tray. This is where the children are going to put their fossils as they find them. You want to fill it to 1/4 to 1/3 full of sand. You don't want to put too much sand, because it's going to be heavy for you to carry. You also want 1 smaller square container, and all of this setup here is 1 per pod. So the small square container you put in the corner. This is where the students are going to put their sand as they're excavating their fossils. For each child within the pod, you want to give them either a paintbrush or a spoon. Now, when you're handing out the paintbrushes and the spoons, you want to have more paintbrushes than spoons. So for a pod of 6 children, you want to give them 4 paintbrushes and 2 spoons. That reduces the amount of sand you have flying all over the place. And having the square container within the fossil bin, you eliminate students bringing sand outside, and you keep the area a little more clean. So we have 1 Rubbermaid high top, 1 small with lid, spoons per pod. Also per pod, you're going to have a T-Rex model skeleton that you've partially put together. Now in the manual, I've indicated which pieces to glue together, but basically you want the pieces to be large enough so that they can find them and they kind of can almost see what they are. You don't want them to be too perplexed by what they have. So this you're going to have to glue together before the class. And just before the class, when you get into the class where you're going to be and everything's sort of not moving anymore, you want to bury these into the sand. Just kind of put them underneath the sand. If you do this before you actually get into the class, as you're carrying this, they're going to rise to the top and everything's going to get messed up. So just before the class, you want to bury all these in the sand for the children to find. Just like that. Now, carrying these can be a problem because you do have 1 of these per pod. And we also have that larger container over here that you're going to put all your other supplies in. So what we've done is I found this at Canadian Tire. Or actually, Graham found it for me. And this is a portable, let me just put it down here. This is a portable little stand that you can close up and put in your car, and you could pile your containers of sand into this and carry them easier. If you have a really big van, you can get one of those big professional jobs that you can pile everything onto and carry that, just 1 person. Because I have a smaller car and some of our instructors have smaller cars, it's good to be able to fold this up. So that's our materials, all that you're going to be needing to use. Also, before you go into the class, or before the class begins, you want to fill 3 tablespoons of the plaster of Paris into the cups. Now, when you're beginning the class, If you have a 90-minute class, you want to use one of the intro observations that Mike has gone over earlier in the tape. If you have a 60-minute class, you want to cut to the chase, get right into the what's science? Scientists, what do? Scientists do three things. They observe, and this is K to 3, so you may need to explain to them what observe is. They hypothesize. They're certainly not going to know what that is, so it's a best guess. And they do experiments. You could tell the class that today we're going to observe, we're going to hypothesize, and we're doing experiments with dinosaurs. Now, there's a special name we give to scientists that study dinosaurs. Does anyone know what that is? They probably won't, but you'll be surprised how much children do know about dinosaurs. So at this point, you say, well, the special name we give to dinosaur studiers are paleontologists, and today we're going to be paleontologists. Now, first discussion, you always start with a discussion. You ask the children, what did you observe as paleontologists about dinosaurs today? What kind of give you a strange look? What are you talking about? Well, what did you observe on the way to school today about dinosaurs? Well, someone will say, well, there are no dinosaurs. Okay, that's a good observation. There are no dinosaurs. You lead into a discussion about dinosaurs being extinct. Then you know the word we give to something that there's nothing left alive anymore. All the animals that were dinosaurs are dead. What do we call that? We call it extinct. If you have a 90-minute class, you maybe want to get into maybe the causes of extinction or some other animals that are extinct. You can ask the children, do they know of any other animals that are extinct? Well, they may or may not. You can tell the story about the dodo, how there's this big fat bird, lived on an island, didn't fly, got eaten to death by people and by their animals. If you only have 60 minutes, you may want to keep that short. But in any case, you want to get out that dinosaurs are extinct. And again, if you have a longer class, you can talk about endangered animals that they're almost extinct. So dinosaurs, the first thing we observed about dinosaurs is they're extinct. That's good. So you can even have them hypothesize about why dinosaurs became extinct. But dinosaurs are extinct. So did we cause the extinction? Were we around? No. If you've watched the Flintstones, you can say, well, the Flintstones, that really didn't happen, because when dinosaurs were around on the Earth, there were no people. There's no one writing it down. There's no one taking pictures. There's no one filming. There were no people around when they were dinosaurs. So we didn't cause the extinction. Okay, first point. And you can ask them, well, if we weren't there, how do we know there were dinosaurs? They'll say, well, I read it in a book. Well, how did people who wrote the book know there were dinosaurs? Well, they drew pictures. Well, how did they know that they were dinosaurs? What tells us they were dinosaurs? And then usually one kid will say, well, they're bones or they're fossils. That's right, fossils. You get into fossilization. What is fossilization? Now, this is when you get to blow up Steggy. Now, while you blow him up, you tell the story. I'm probably not going to blow him up because I'm going to pass out. But while you're blowing him up, you tell the story about this is little Steggy. See, little Steggy was born in South Dakota from an egg. Well, I don't know there's an egg. And he ate and ate and ate, and he grew. And as he's growing, then you can blow him up. So he's getting bigger and bigger. So he ate and he ate and he ate. He got bigger and bigger and bigger. And when he was young, he lived with his parents. And his parents, they took care of him. They kept him safe. And he ate more and he grew more. And you blow him up and you blow him up and you blow him up. And usually, if you're a good storyteller, the kids are sitting there riveted. Oh, what's going to happen to Steggy? So one day, Steggy's walking out. He's old now. He's by himself. He's full grown at this point. He's walking around all by himself, eating his plants. And he hears something behind him. And what he hears is a whole bunch of feet coming towards him. He turns around, and what does he see? And the kids will scream out, Tyrannosaurus! No, he didn't see Tyrannosaurus. He saw a pack of allosaurs. Maybe they've heard of allosaurs, maybe they haven't. Now, allosaurs were dinosaurs. They may or may not have hunted in packs. This is a hungry pack of allosaurs. Now, did the allosaurs want to eat leaves? No, allosaurs didn't want to eat leaves. What did the allosaurs want to eat? Then they'll say, Steggy! That's right. So Steggy's by himself. How did he defend himself? What do you see on his body he could use to defend himself? And what he has on his tail, he has spikes. So he can swish around his spikes, and he used his spikes to ward off the hungry allosaurs. But one allosaur tried to bite him right behind his head. And right behind his head, he has these plates. And you can say these plates kept him safe. So the allosaurs, they didn't eat him that day. He had his spikes to save him, and he had his plates. Now, Steggy lived a good life. He ate lots of plants. He got old, and eventually he died. And when he dies, you start deflating him. And you ask the children, what's going to happen to Steggy's body now? What's going to happen to the soft parts of his body, all his skin and all his meat? So maybe other little dinosaurs will come and eat him, and slowly, 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 he'll decompose. What that means is that all the soft parts of his body are going to go into the earth, and the plants are going to use them, and it's going to help the plants grow. And another Stegosaurus is going to come and eat the plants, and that's the food chain. So The soft parts of his body decompose. Now what's left? What's not soft on our body? They'll give guesses. You say, well, what do you feel that's hard on your body? Your bones. So what's left are Steggy's bones. That's when you hold up this. So Steggy's bones are lying on the ground, or maybe they're covered under the ground, and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of years go by. And what may happen, it doesn't always happen, but what may happen is that his bones are going to slowly turn to rock. Very, very slowly, over millions and millions of years. And those rocks are called fossils. And that's what paleontologists find. So, again, reinforce that the hard parts slowly turn to rock and become fossils. Now, so if you're a paleontologist, what's the only thing you can use to study your dinosaurs? Your fossils. So fossils are very important to paleontologists. Now, unfortunately, there aren't a lot of fossils because it doesn't always happen that the bones turn to rock. So when a paleontologist finds a fossil, it's a really, really big thing. And all the paleontologists want to study it. So it can be a problem because there may be a paleontologist in Africa, one in India, one in the Arctic that want to study the same fossil. So do you have any suggestions of what they can do? And the wonderful thing is they'll all say, well, they can share. And that's really nice that they can share. And it's wonderful. But unfortunately, it sometimes takes years and years and years to study one fossil. So it's not a good idea. It's a good idea to share, but it's kind of difficult for some of the paleontologists because they don't have years and years and years. They want to study it right now. Do you have any other suggestions? Well, they have a hard time to think about it. You can say, well, what if I had a piece of paper and I want you all to read the piece of paper? What could I do? Let's say make copies of it. Well, that's exactly what paleontologists do. They make copies. And the special name that we give to a copy of a fossil is called a cast. So paleontologists, they'll take one fossil and they'll make a print of it and they'll make a cast. Now you can relate it to casts that they may have had on their arms. Casts are hard and they're usually the same shape on the inside anyway as your arm. So a cast of a fossil isn't the real fossil, but it's an exact copy of a fossil. Now, this is leading into the next activity. The next activity, you tell the children, okay, well, I have some casts for you. And as paleontologists, I'm going to let you observe the casts, make hypotheses about the casts. Now, you can ask them if these are real casts, or if these are casts, what are they? Are they real fossils? And they'll say no. Well, what are they? They're exact duplicates of fossils. So reinforce the concept. So hold up these two casts, but don't tell the students what they are. Walk around, tell them that because they're casts, they're hard, and even real fossils sometimes are very fragile. They can break. If you drop them, they will break. So tell the students to be very, very careful with these casts. These are real casts from real fossils. And keep saying that because it's wow. They use them. This is really cool. So walk around and to each pod give the tooth and the maxilla. Don't tell them what it is and have them make hypotheses, make observations. So once they've all got their casts, once they're all making their hypothesis, and again, be very, very careful to make sure they know that they shouldn't drop this because this will break if it's dropped. The tooth isn't so bad. It's kind of more fat and hard, but this will probably break if dropped. So ask the students, what are your observations? What did you observe? Well, this is long, this is little holes, this is a hole here, this is brown. An important observation on the T-Rex tooth is it does have ridges here. Okay, who can hypothesize what this is? Well, there are many different hypotheses. It can be a horn, it can be a tooth, it can be a claw. So they'll have all those great hypotheses. Now, you may want to tell them that this is just the tip of the real cast. The real cast is around, the real fossil is around that big. What we have is we just have the tip. Make that little point here. So does this change your hypotheses? Okay, at this point, probably too big to be a claw. You could tell them, kids will usually guess that this is a tooth. And this is, does anyone know what species of dinosaur it's from? It's from T-Rex. That's great. Now what about this? What are your observations? What are your hypotheses that this could be? Well, go through the whole routine, and this is a jawbone from another dinosaur called a Camptosaurus. Now ask them to make observations of the differences between the two teeth. Okay, this one's pointier, these ones are flatter. Do you think that this tooth would be good for eating meat or for eating plants? Okay, it's long and pointy, so it's probably good for eating meat. It's got that serrated sides here. So this is from a meat eater. Do you know what we call a meat eater? It's called a carnivore. Have all the kids repeat carnivore. So what do carnivores eat? They eat meat. So is this good for eating plants? No, this is really bad for eating plants. It's good for eating meat. It's a carnivore. What about this one? If you look at these teeth here, do they look like they'd be really, really good for cutting up and killing other animals? Not really. They're kind of flat. They're not really pointy. They're not really sharp. What would these teeth be really good for? For shearing plants. That's right. So is this animal a meat eater? No. It's a plant eater. What do we call a plant eater? They'll probably say a vegetarian. Say, well, that's what we call people who eat only plants. But when other animals we call them herbivores. Have them repeat herbivores. So go over it again. Is this a herbivore? No, it's a carnivore. Is this a carnivore? No, it's herbivore. So we have herbivore and carnivore. Now, at this point, we're going to make casts. You ask the students if they would like to make a cast of this cast so they can take home and make more observations and make more hypotheses. So they'll always say yes. So you hand out to each child a lump of Play-Doh. Now you tell them, especially if you're living in a cold place and they've been sitting in a car, tell them the first thing they want to do is mush up their Play-Doh really, really well. And a good idea before this activity is to remind them they're paleontologists, they're scientists. This is a serious thing. So once they have their Play-Doh, they've mushed it up really well, have them roll it kind of into a ball like this and flatten it out. You don't want to get it too flat. If it's too flat, it's not going to take the shape of the cast. So flatten it out like this and tell them to use the T-Rex tooth. I've had better luck with the T-Rex tooth. If you're modifying this for older grades and you have more time, you can try the Camptosaurus jaw, but let the plaster Paris sit longer. With the Camptosaurus jaw, you have to push it further into the plasticine so you get a thicker layer of plaster. With the T-Rex tooth, it's easier. So have the students just gently press their tooth into the plasticine, Play-Doh, and pull it out. And that's their mold. Now while they're doing that, you can ask the teacher to walk around, give each student the plaster of Paris dry with the popsicle stick, and tell them that you're going to come around and put roughly 1 tablespoon of water into the plaster of Paris. They're to mix it up and then pour it into the mold. So, and you can practice with a turkey baster to get just the right amount. You don't want it to be too thick, but you don't want it to be too thin either. The thinner it is, it may take longer to set. If done at a 3-to-1 ratio, it usually sets pretty well within 20 minutes. Okay, so they mix it up. They'll often sort of rush to pour it in. Encourage them to mix really, really well to get all the plaster on the bottom. Make sure they have their plasticine, Play-Doh, make sure they have their Play-Doh on a paper towel, so if it does spill over, it's not going to land on their desks. But this will wash off with water in any case. And have them slowly pour it in. There you go. Now, at this point, you want them to either put this aside on the corner of their desk or actually get them to move onto the floor for the next activity, because you don't want them getting sand in this, you don't want them turning it over. Now, the next activity, so it's really, really important for paleontologists to find fossils, because that's the only way they can study dinosaurs. So the next activity, we're going to be paleontologists, and we're going to go on an excavation. What's an excavation? What do paleontologists do? They go out into the desert or anywhere. Sometimes they go in the Arctic. They go all over the place looking for fossils. Now, reinforce to the children that this is a serious activity and that paleontologists work very, very slowly. They use small tools sometimes, and very, very carefully they look under the sand, they look in the rocks for fossils. So at this point, you want to get the children onto the floor or in a different area, have them put this aside, put it over on another table. If they're putting it on the table, have them put their names on it. And pass out to them your fossil dig. Remind them that fossils can be very delicate, so that the fossil should go directly from the bin onto the lid. They can use the spoons to put the sand in here, but once they find a fossil, once they find something sticking up, they should use the paintbrushes to whisk away the sand. And they should only lift the fossil out of the container once the whole fossil is uncovered, because they don't want to break it. Now, it may happen that over the trials, these things may come apart. They're glued well, and I haven't had anything fall apart yet, and I don't think they will. But if it does happen that a student breaks off one piece, it's really not that bad, because fossils come in different pieces. So as these get worn and worn and worn, it may get into smaller and smaller pieces, but that's fine. At one point, you will have to glue them back together. The feet, I think it's important to keep together. But if a part of the rib cage comes off, it's no big whoop. So the kids are going to go through, they're going to find their fossils. They're going to dust them off, and it's really cute to see the kids gently dusting off the fossils. And they're going to put them all into the lid. Depending on the age group, this can take anywhere from 5, depending on the sophistication of the children, this can take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. Just get the important parts out here. Of course, you'd never have the children go through with their hands like this. Now, once they've all found most of their fossils, they'll usually find them all, but if there's a couple pieces that are missing in action in the sand, it's no big deal. Once they've found all of their fossils, ask them if they can start hypothesizing what they are. So we're looking through, you'll see kids and they're sort of trying to put things together. That's okay. Once they've found everything, okay, everybody, you can even take away their sand at this point. If they're young, they tend to have a fascination with sand. They'll still want to be playing with it. They'll be putting it in here. So you can just take away the sand bin, so they're only left with this. If they're sophisticated enough to be able to put it aside themselves, just leave it there for them. And go over, if you have time, piece by piece what they have, or the important pieces anyway. The first important piece you want to hold up is the head. You can ask them, you can do this in any order really, ask them to hypothesize. Did everyone find this? What do you hypothesize, or what do you observe about this piece of the skeleton, first of all? Well, it's got something sharp here, kind of hollow underneath. What do you hypothesize it is? It's the head of the dinosaur. Now, the head of the dinosaur is a really important thing to find because it tells you a lot about the dinosaur. One thing it tells you is whether it is a dinosaur or not. What they can do is, if you look closely on this model, you have 3 holes in the head. Now, 3 holes in the head, 3 holes in the skull, tell you it's a dinosaur. Dinosaurs are reptiles. There are a lot of reptiles out there, like alligators and crocodiles and lizards. They don't have 3 holes in their head the way dinosaurs did. This is one of the things that tells you that you do have a dinosaur. Now, what do you notice about the dinosaur's teeth? Does this look like a herbivore or a carnivore? At this point, they don't know what it is yet. It looks like it's probably a carnivore. Do these teeth look familiar at all? Well, they look kind of like the tooth we had before. And this is actually, can anyone hypothesize what it is? That's right, this is really a T-Rex skull. Skull anyway, we don't know about the rest of the body. This is a T-Rex skull. Now the next kind of thing that's neat are these. Does anyone know what these are? Most kids will say it's our ribs, or the dinosaur's ribs. You can ask them, well, do we have ribs? And they could feel their ribs. Well, what do our ribs do for us? And what do our ribs do for the dinosaur? Well, they kind of protected all the soft stuff that's inside. What soft stuff do we have inside? We have our lungs, we have our heart, some organs. Yeah, and that's exactly what these ribs did for the dinosaurs. They helped protect his lungs, his heart, his organs. And you can go through, talk about the bottom jaw. It has teeth also. One good thing to point out, hold up these 2 things, and you can ask them, can anyone hypothesize what these are? They're his arms and legs of the Tyrannosaurus. What do you observe about the arms and the legs of the Tyrannosaurus? Well, one is really small and one is really big. You're right. Can anyone hypothesize which one was small and which one was big? That's right, the leg was big. Can you hypothesize why Tyrannosaurus would need a big leg? Well, because he needs to walk. Yeah, he needs to walk. Does he need to walk quickly or slowly? He needs to walk quickly. Why does he need to walk quickly? Because he's a carnivore. He has to hunt for his food. Unlike a big Stegosaurus, Stegosaurus didn't need to run really quickly. His plants don't run away from him, and when he's attacked, he doesn't have to run away. He can use his tail and his plate to keep him safe. Tyrannosaurus, he had to run after his food, so he needs big, strong legs. And his arms, who knows what they did? They probably didn't do much. Another neat thing, what's missing on the leg is the foot. And we'll find this. This is his foot. What do you notice about his foot and his arm? His foot was bigger than his arm. That's a pretty big foot. Why do you hypothesize that Tyrannosaurus would need a big foot? Well, Tyrannosaurus is a big guy. If he had little feet, he'd probably fall over. Okay. Now, can you hypothesize what this is? This is part of his tail. The Tyrannosaurus' tail is in 2 or 3 pieces. We have 2 here. This is his tail. This is pretty long. Anyone hypothesize why Tyrannosaurus would have a long tail? Well, he doesn't have stakes on it like Steggy did to swing it and hit people. Look back at his head. Tyrannosaurus' head is pretty big. In a real Tyrannosaurus head, probably this big, this long, by around this high, by around that wide. Now this is a really heavy head. You can kind of walk around with your head sticking out like this. Imagine if you had a really heavy head, what's going to happen to you? You're going to start to fall over. So one of the things that paleontologists hypothesized, that Tyrannosaurus had a big long tail to balance him so he wouldn't topple over. Now, one of the most important parts about a dinosaur is this part. The kids are going to have a hard time identifying this. What this is the dinosaur's hips, or his pelvic girdle. Dinosaurs' hips, paleontologists use to divide dinosaurs into two big groups. There are two big groups of dinosaurs. And the way we separate them in one group or another are the hips. And there are dinosaurs that we call bird-hipped dinosaurs, and there are dinosaurs that we call lizard-hipped. And these are the dinosaurs' hips. So this is a really, really important thing to find. Okay. So, and you can stretch this activity out longer or you can shorten it, depending on how much time you have and how much time you used on the cast activity. So the important things to get across in this is the 3 holes in the dinosaur's head and the hips. Those are the main things. And the big arms and big legs. So I'm just going to take a minute off here. We're going to go and we're going to come back. We're going to take the cast out. It's like a cooking show. We have another one cooking. Be back in a minute. Okay, so by this time the cast should have hardened. It usually takes around 20 minutes. You could tell the children to go back to their desks, to take their cast, and to put it over into their hands, and to very gently peel off your Play-Doh. What they'll have, if all goes well, is a cast. Now, it's blue. That's why I say that if you can, use white Play-Doh or use the stuff we make in white. And when this dries, they can just clean it off. And this is the cast of their Tyrannosaurus tooth. They can take their Play-Doh, put it back in the container. Now, at this point, take a few minutes, clean up, ask them, okay, now when you go home tonight and your mother asks you about this, what are you going to tell her? You're going to tell her that today, you studied dinosaurs. What do you call a scientist that studies dinosaurs? They're called paleontologists. Now, what is this? Is this a real fossil? No, it's a cast of a fossil. Okay, what's a cast? Go through the whole cast thing again with them. Is this a meat-eating or a plant-eating dinosaur? It's a meat-eating dinosaur. What do we call a meat-eating dinosaur? Meat-eating anything for that matter. Called carnivores. What do you call the ones like Steggy? Remember Steggy? Was Steggy did he eat meat? No, he ate plants. So go over the whole class, ask the pertinent questions: herbivore, carnivore, casts, fossils, paleontologist, excavation, Tyrannosaurus. Go over it all. Wrap up. You're done. If it's a longer class, while you're doing the cleanup, you can pass out the Mad Tech equipment. If not, do the cleanup. The cleanup for this isn't that bad, really. It's just a matter of taking these, putting them in the garbage. In all the workshop brochures, or not brochures, in all the workshop manuals, in the back, there's the sort of for your information for the instructor. The dinosaur one is a little longer because kids know a lot about dinosaurs. So what I've included is a little bit longer than the other, let's say, sound workshop. There's a lot of information in there. I really recommend that you learn it, and even learn more than that, because kids know a lot about dinosaurs, and they may have questions about what kind of dinosaur was this, and what did this dinosaur eat? And they, like I said, they know a lot. So read that, learn it. If you can, go to a library and learn more. And with all the workshops, have fun and teach the children. Good luck.